All right, we are live.
Hello, friends. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. My name is Zack Glaze, and I'm a Moroccanoil artist. You can follow me at Hair by Zack on Instagram. I'm super excited today to discuss how to modernize a nice twist on a classic bob. And so today we're going to go over some key fundamentals to help you behind the chair to just up your bob game a little bit. Throughout this live, please be sure to ask questions, comment any aha moments you may have. One lucky person is going to be entered into the chance to receive Moroccanoil's new fragrance mist, Brooms du Maroc. And let me tell you, it is absolutely amazing. So, type in the chat box in the comments. Let us know where you're from, what you're most excited about today, and we'll get started. So our first thing is our prep. I feel prep is super important anytime we're doing any type of cutting, styling, coloring. It sets us up for success. So the first thing I started off with was Moroccanoil's Volumizing shampoo and conditioner, just to provide a gentle cleanse and condition while giving us volume when we go into blow drying. Once we've completed our shampoo, I went in with Moroccanoil's all-in-one leave-in conditioner. This is a great detangler. It adds extra nourishment into the hair. And this is my go-to product for my cutting lotion as well. So you'll see me use that a good bit throughout this cut. And then I base it with Moroccanoil Treatment Light. This is a great product for smoothness, manageability. It's also going to provide up to 118% shine in just one use. And everybody loves that shiny hair. So now once we have all of our products distributed, let's begin with our sectioning. I've gone ahead and pre-sectioned her out. We're just going to take a simple 4-quad sectioning. Middle, we're going to take it all the way back to the nape, and then a radial section from ear to ear. So once you have that established, we are going to go in with our first subsection. We'll start in the middle, and then we're going to create a slight diagonal forward subsection. And I usually like to start just right about the occipital bone and then bring it down to the bottom of the ear. You don't have to worry about making this a super hardcore incline, just something nice and soft. And now make sure that your guest head is tilted forward slightly, just to help with that elevation here at the neckline. And here's where I'm going to go in with that all-in-one leave-in conditioner, just to make sure she is super saturated. And then I'm going to part this straight down the middle. And everything's going to be mirrored from one side to the other.
Hey, Zack.
So, yes.
Hey, it's Heather from BTC. And we have a question coming through Facebook from Michelle. She wants to know if you're using a detangler as well, or if any of those products have a detangler involved.
Great question. So the all-in-one leave-in conditioner is actually going to be your detangler, as well as the Moroccanoil treatment. That helps to kind of give you that extra smoothness and detangling as well. But the all-in-one leave-in conditioner, that's your number one go-to for a detangler. Awesome. All right, so let's begin with our cut. Make sure everybody can see this. Perfect. Sorry, I'm kind of working mirror image to the camera here. Awesome. So we're going to go in, and I'm going to start on the right side. It may be your left visually. And we are going to determine where we want our length to live. And I usually like to go below the jawline. And with this being a mannequin, we'll actually use the base of the neck for our guide here. Perfect. Now, when you're going to comb this through, make sure that your fingers stay parallel to your part. And then, move my comb out of the way, we're going to point cut our entire base here with 0 elevation. So we're going to let this fall into natural fall. I don't have a super tight grip onto the hair, so that way we make sure that it stays into its natural fall. And then I'm going to go in and just point cut. Now I like to point cut going to that middle, because when we're point cutting, this is going to push the hair. And if we were to point cut everything going in one direction, you're going to start pushing that hair into one. And this is going to allow us to have even consistency throughout the entire haircut. And so I'm just taking small little point cuts, nothing too crazy, having a nice clean line here. Once you reach your bottom, I always like to check to make sure that the line is straight and I don't have any little tags here. Perfect. And now
Hey,
we're going, yes.
we have one more question. Michelle is asking, what are the benefits of using those products for cutting and not just water?
Great. So the all-in-one leave-in conditioner is a great cutting lotion. I really feels like it gives that extra hydration onto the hair. So it really allows you to just comb through. And the benefits of it, it has a lot of nutrients in it. So versus like water, it's just water. This is going to add extra hydration, extra nourishment into the hair. Same way with the Moroccanoil treatment. It is pure argan oil, so it's going to help with the vitamin E in the hair, the overall healthiness and nourishment. And honestly, with the all-in-one leave-in conditioner, you could use a whole entire bottle on somebody's head and it's not going to weigh it down or make it heavy or any of that. It's literally my favorite product. Awesome. Great question. I love it. All right, so now we're going to go to our other side and we're going to perform the same thing. I always like to take just a little strand from our previous section to help me with our guide to make sure we keep that consistent. I'm going to turn her just a tad. And remember, we're going to go parallel to this part. I find where that guide is. And then we'll go in and point cut, going to the center. So this allows us to have that even consistency on both sides. And I know when I learned this technique at the Moroccanoil Academy in New York, I was really just blown away by having a different way to cut a bob, because I feel sometimes we get stuck in that rut and it's usually the same cut over and over again. And this really allowed me to do something different behind the chair, and a lot of my clients started to notice it as well. And I think our clients love when we give them something different, but yet they are still able to keep their same kind of style. And so once we finish our section, we're going to go in and just check for our balance. A little off on one side. Just point cut in. Check that balance once again. Perfect. And now we are going to move on to our next subsection here. And once again, I'm going to go in with our all-in-one leave-in conditioner just to resaturate the hair really well. Comb that through. And just like we did on our first subsection, I'm going to start right in the middle. We're going to take a slight diagonal forward section. And I always like to make sure that I put my hand where I want my comb to meet, because it's going to give you a super clean line. It takes out the hassle and the work of having to just go little bit by little bit. Clip this out of the way. And then go in and mirror. Turn her. And we're still going to make sure that our guest head is tilted slightly forward as well. Perfect. And then clip that out the way. Resaturate. Awesome. And so as we continue, we're going to just continue to do the same thing as we did with our first subsection. Split down the middle. Come down to natural fall, zero elevation. Our hands are parallel to our parting. And then we will go in, find that guide, and point cut, coming to the center. And I think this is super fun because you can make it your own. You can always choose different lengths to go by. You could go in and take bigger point cuts. I like to take small ones just to keep a nice clean line into it as well. So it's very versatile.
Hey, Zach.
Yes.
All right. Steph wants to know, do you have any tips for preventing a bell-shaped bob?
So could you clarify on bell shape, like too rounded?
I think so.
So honestly, to keep from getting too much of a round, I would say maybe not incline as much with your sectionings. That's one thing because I run into that all the time, really getting that rounded bevel. And I noticed a lot of times it was how I was cutting with my subsection. And I would either get it too inclined and it would come up higher. And so when I started going almost in a direct horizontal line, but just slightly going at that diagonal, that really helps soften a lot of it up. And another thing, it's how much you would over direct when you're starting like your layers with your bobs coming down. I feel like less layers up at the top takes away some of that rounded bevel at the end. And this is a great way to cut your bob too, so that way you're not running into the bell shape, because I feel like this is more of that kind of modernized bob look. I think we're stepping away trend wise from like the really rounded shapes. Hopefully that made sense for you.
Great. Thank you. And Michelle is asking, do you keep the head tilted to the top?
Yes. So with this cut, we'll actually keep the head tilted for the entire cut for our base and our perimeter. But then once we get into our finishing steps, that's when you could actually tilt the head up a little bit. Because this entire bob will be cut at 0 elevation, so everything will fall into its natural fall. We won't be elevating or anything as far as our length goes. So I'm just going to continue moving up the head here, slight diagonal forward sectioning. And as you move up, you will notice that you will run out of as big of a section, which kind of lets you know you are almost done with that section as well. Spray a little bit more of leave-in conditioner. So are any of you already kind of thinking of a client you want to try this on? Are you already pulling out those mannequins, taking notes? Because this is one of my all-time favorite cuts to do behind the chair, because it's super simplified, it's easy to do, and I feel like it's one of those cuts that you can kind of just knock out of the park and keep it a-moving. And I know time is money behind the chair.
All right. Do you ever do any dry cutting or do you prefer wet?
I actually prefer both. It kind of depends on my overall look that I want at the end. The cool thing about this cut is our base is done wet and our texturizing and our finishing is actually done on dry hair. So you kind of get the best of both worlds with it. And I feel like starting a cut wet is always great, and then going into blow dry, because then you can fine detail everything, just because we all know once the hair is dry, everything's going to lay a little bit differently. But for the base of like this haircut, I would definitely start out wet. Now I'm on our opposite side. Just continuous point cutting going up, meeting into that middle. And point cutting can be a lot of fun, because I think a lot of times too, we get so stuck in the ways of just doing the same thing over and over, our sharp blunt cuts, which is great, but it's nice to switch it up so we don't get bored behind the chair either. And we're just meeting to that middle. And I think a big...
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, you're good.
All right. Steph is asking, why do you tilt the client's head forward?
So the reason I tilt the head forward is because a lot of times when the head is straight up and we're trying to go into natural fall, sometimes we get this little bend right here. And so then once your client does tilt their head back forward, you wind up having your length over that, and then you're having all these flip outs, and then you're pretty much going to go in and have to redo the cut, because everything's going to be offset just a little bit. All right. So now we are at this top section here. It'll be our final piece in the back. Comb everything through into natural fall. And a lot of times, sometimes our clients already may have a bob cut. And so as you continue going up, you may run out of hair, and that's perfectly okay. You just won't cut that. Just let it fall into its natural position. And so as you can see, since I'm coming towards the top of this back section, I have very little hair to cut here, but I'm going to still continue to go in. Point cut just this few little bits here. Keep us a going. Perfect. And then continue that on our opposite side.
All right. And yes, to answer your question, Zack does have an Instagram. It's in the bottom left corner of your screen, Hair by Zack. Y'all can go follow him there, ask him any more questions you have. And while we're at it, Michelle would love to know what shears you're using.
I am actually using Hanzo's, and I think these are the HH4. I can't remember the exact name of them. These are some of my favorite. I've actually had these shears for about 6 years now. And these are actually the 6-inch shears, just because my hand's a little bit bigger for the 5.5s.
All right, awesome. And then will this be blunt or a layered cut?
This will actually be a blunt cut with texturized layering without layering. And so once we get into the texturizing, I will go in a little bit more details and explain a little of that as well. It's just a fun overall textured, fun bob haircut. All right, so now once we have our back part complete, you can see we have that nice point cut to our ends. It's super soft. Everything's coming into natural fall. And now let's get started onto our sides. And so with our sides, we're pretty much going to do the same thing we kind of did to the back. We're going to take slight diagonal forward sectioning. And I'm still going to keep the head slightly tilted forward. If this becomes a little uncomfortable on your client, you can have them adjust just a little bit. But really just having that slightly tilted forward will still work pretty good for you. All right. Now, so with our sides, we're actually going to over direct the hair to the back, which is going to give us a very slight elevation coming forward. If your guest wanted to keep this a solid one length, then just bring it straight down into its natural fall. I like to come a little bit over the shoulder here. And then we're going to start on our outer end and point cut to meet into the back. And, you know, that's the fun thing with this is point cutting I do a lot of over blunt lines. I love texture, and I've always been a big texture fan. And I feels like it just really softens up a haircut for you too, to be able to have that. Some people prefer the blunt, but I also feel when growing out from any haircut, when you have those soft ends, you don't see as much, trying to think how to explain, a lot of like the unevenness sometimes that people's hair will grow. Because I have a few people that'll come in that I do blunt lines on, and as it grows in, it starts becoming a little staggered. So I really do enjoy point cutting just because the grow out is so much softer. Okay.
All right. We have a good question. Bobby Jean is asking, because of the heat of the summer, is this the kind of cut a client could air dry, or do they need to blow dry?
Oh, this is definitely an air dry haircut if they need to. I feel like when blow drying this, it's just more to fine tune a style, but air drying, oh, this is great. It's a very fun beachy haircut as well. That's a really good question because I feel like nowadays a lot of our clients are wanting easy, fast, quick styles, and they don't want to put a lot of work into it, which, hey, that's totally good. And so a cut like this would be great for that. Especially if you can base it with like a dry texture spray after it's already kind of air dried. That's always a fun extra added product that they could use as well once it is dry. And so we are into our last section on our one side over here. I'm just combing this down into its natural fall. And honestly, I just need to take off just a little bit here, bringing everything straight back to the back, right over her shoulder. Make sure my arm does not get in the way of the camera. And we're just point cutting, meeting into that middle, and done. Awesome. All right. So now we're going to go over to our opposite side and finish up our base. Straighten her head up. Okay. So once again, we're going to go in. I'm going to spray a little bit of all-in-one leave-in conditioner. She's getting a little dry on me. And I know sometimes it's hard to see on the camera, but I have sprayed a lot of leave-in on here, but it's not heavy. You can still see a lot of that bounce that's still coming through into the hair. I know you can't feel it through the screen, but it's not oily, it's not heavy, any of that stuff. So we'll go in with our slight diagonal forward. Put this out of the way. And I feel too, this is a fun way to do your bobs, especially learning your bobs, because bobs were always my hardest haircut to do. And I feel like the more stylists I come across, it's the same for them. So something like this really simplified that haircut for me and made me look at it in a whole new way. All right, and so this is where we are going to comb everything straight back over the shoulder if she had shoulders. You can see our guide right throughout there. And then we are just going to point cut, meeting into our previous section. Awesome. So what do you guys think so far? Having any aha moments or looking at the bobs a little bit different now? As far as cutting our perimeter. I know sectioning is a little bit different because we're so used to taking everything so hardcore diagonals, and we're usually not used to doing like slight diagonals up in the front and bringing all of this back. Sometimes we really overwork ourselves, I think.
All right, everybody's loving this and loving all your knowledge. We do have a couple questions. Bobby Jean is asking, what types of textures of hair do you recommend this cut for?
Honestly, I feel like the coarser the hair, you're gonna probably fight a little bit more. So really that fine to medium hair texture, I would say a little more on the smoother side. Heavy curls would probably not be the idealist for this. It can still be done, but I definitely would probably say you're fine to medium and straighter hair textures. So we are on our last section here for our perimeter. Bringing everything straight back over the shoulder. And since this is my last little piece, I only have a few strands to cut. But we'll make sure to give this a nice clean line. I get so excited doing this cut too, just because it's so modern now. And I feel like we're finally stepping away a little bit from what we've done for so many years now. All right, so once you get done cutting your overall perimeter, everything's been cut at a 0 degrees, natural fall. You just kind of go in, cross-check everything, make sure your points are balanced. It is going to get shorter, gradually a little bit longer into the front. And so I did cut all of this off of a middle part. And the biggest thing is if your guest decide or has a part more over to the side, part your hair there for your top where you meet for your radial ear to ear and cut off of their part. And then as far as your back section goes, that's where you would split that down into the middle just to make sure that you're keeping that balance so when they part their hair, one side's not super long than the other side. Awesome. So once you have your base completely cut, this is where you're going to go in and actually blow dry. And so I like to go in with Moroccanoil's Volumizing Mist. This is a super lightweight volumizer, and it is based with sea salt from the Dead Sea, so it's super light onto the hair. And it also has a 72-hour memory hold, unless they wash their hair, of course, before that 72 hours. But it's super light, super airy, and if their volume kind of falls flat, all they have to do is shake their hair a little bit, and that volume will instantly pop back in. And so once I get that applied, I go in and I just do a typical blowout. I like to use about a 45 millimeter round brush, really elevating up at the roots to provide a little bit of volume. And once you have it completely dry, then you're going to go in, and this is where we're going to start with the fun texturizing part. So I'm going to just switch her out. I'm not going to actually blow dry her just to save us a little time.
Perfect. And Michelle is asking, with the products, about how much oil would you apply? And same goes for really all of those products. Is there a suggested amount that you use?
So with the Moroccanoil treatment, I usually only do like 1 to 2 pumps on wet hair. It just depends on the density of the hair. Usually finer hair types, I'll do about 1 pump. And as I get into the thicker, coarser types, that's when I'll go in with 2 pumps. And with the all-in-one leave-in conditioner, I usually just distribute it enough to get everything spread throughout. But it's also one of those products, as I was using it as a cutting lotion, that you can use as much of it as you want. It's not going to weigh it down. Same thing with the volumizing mist. I just spray it all around and then just comb or brush it through just to make sure it's evenly distributed throughout. Great question, because I know sometimes products can get heavy and we do not want that. So you can see after she's gotten blow dried out, she does have a little bit of a wave to her, but it's just a super soft line that comes throughout, which I really, really like that too. And so when we go in to texturize this, the best way that I like to look at it is this is kind of like giving your clients a layered haircut without layers, which I think a lot of people are looking for now because we just want that fun, easy, simplistic style into our hair. And this is great for doing that. And so what we're going to do, she's completely dry, and we're going to go in and pre-section her out the same way we did before we started the cut, into our 4 quads, down the middle, all the way to the back, and radial ear to ear. And so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And don't forget, for all of you who are maybe just tuning in, we just went through and we did a perimeter, cutting everything at a 0 degrees, point cutting the entire perimeter to create softness. And we blew dry, going in with 45 millimeter round brush, giving a little bit of volume at the root area. And now we're going in to do our texturizing. And also don't forget, put some comments in the comment box, ask some questions. You'll be able to get a chance to be entered to win Moroccanoil's new fragrance mist, Brooms du Maroc. It is absolutely amazing. It smells just like Moroccan. It is based with vitamin E, argan oil, and it has scents of amber and floral in it. It's become one of the biggest things in my salon, I know. Oh, lost the clip. All right, so then we're going to go in after we get our quad sectioned out here. Same way we did our perimeter, slight diagonal forward sections into the back. I start about the occipital bone going down to the bottom of the ear. Now we're going to go in with our texturizers. I'm just using, I think this is a 22 teeth texturizer. I usually don't suggest using like the chunking texturizers unless your client may have a little bit of coarser hair, which is where this cut would work for a coarser hair type. Because it is going to be removing a little bit of weight, but it's not the same as like if we were actually debulking the hair. All right, so we're going to go in. I'm going to section this down the middle just like we did for the wet cut part. All this will actually be elevated up a little bit. So this way when it falls, it's going to create a nice softness to it. Now we're not going to go in horizontally. We're actually going to go in at a slight angle. And so I always have fun with this because I always picture like shapes as I'm cutting. And so I'm going to go in at a slight angle and just do one little close of the shear and then two and pull that out. And so what this is, oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just interrupted you. I just wanted to bust in here with this question. How thick is that section that you're working on?
So this is about a good 2-inch section. Since this is the very bottom line, I don't go too much in with my texturizers here, so I do make this a little bit of a bigger section. Just because once you pick that hair up and elevate it a little bit, you're gonna have the shorter pieces automatically drop out. So when that happens, you wind up with about an inch subsection. So that's one fun thing that I like about doing this on actually dry hair is it gives you a little bit more control with what the hair actually wants to do instead of us trying to, oh, this is what it's going to do wet and then dry and be like, oh, I might need to go back in and do X, Y, and Z. All right, so we're just going to continue the same pattern going up the back, slight diagonal forward sections. And now if your guest has coarser hair, then I would probably recommend taking smaller sections. And then the finer the hair, the bigger the sections you can take as well. It's all about control with our shears. And one thing that I always think about is I have a few of those clients that once you pick up those texturizers, they freak out. I don't like the thinning shears. Please don't cut my hair with them. The best trick I have learned to actually get away from this, oh, these aren't thinning shears, these are texturizers. Oh, okay, and vice versa. It's the same shear, but it's a different technique. And I think that's the big thing for us. Our guests don't always know what our techniques are. So just a little trick you can add into your arsenal. Texturizers, not thinning shears. Okay. And so we're going to continue with this next section. It's about a good 1.5 to 2-inch subsection as well. We're going to pick up that hair, elevate slightly, and just go in at that angle.
And what is the effect of that angle doing?
So instead of going in and creating like just that blunt line with them where you have like the little hairs that pop up, when you're coming in this way, you're providing a different kind of texture. And so just like with the bob, how we'll cut coming shorter to longer, it's the same thing that our texturizers are doing. You're building shorter into longer, and then when you come into the middle, shorter to longer. So this is just a fun way to create added texture without trying to be too precise with it. And I even use this technique on my layered haircuts as well. And within the past, I think, because I learned this back in January at the academy, and clients have really noticed the difference. I've had a few come in and say, I don't know what you did differently to my hair, but please do it again. It was just fun. Because I think we're getting away from that, the clean, super straight, even of everything. People want messy. At least in my area where I live, that's becoming a really big thing. And I know it's always going to depend on where you are demographically as well. But that way you're also leaving a little bit more of the weight on the inside too, versus taking out that big chunk of weight coming all the way down. It just kind of really makes it a sporadic texturizer and weight removal in a sense.
Awesome. And are these sections the same as you did for the wet cut?
Yes, everything is completely the same, quad sectioning, and then diagonal forward sections for our subsections.
Awesome. Oh, here's a good question. So Kim is asking for a left-handed cut. Do you use the same angle as a right-handed cutter?
Yes. So when I cut our perimeter and I was cutting from the outside in, this was allowing that hair to kind of push in this way once it blow dries and vice versa on this side. Versus if you were to cut from the middle going down, that's going to push your cut coming forward. Now, if they want something to fall more towards their face, most definitely you can cut from the middle coming forward. But I cut this one coming backwards so that way it flowed nicely away. Most definitely. Great question. Right, and so now we're on our back section, the very top. I'm going to take this into one subsection here, just since it's a little bit smaller of an area. I'll hold this up with my fingers this time. I won't, so you can see. And you'll notice that this is longer, of course, just because we're going short to long with our bob. Same thing though, I just come in at that slight angle, meet in the middle here, and then just comb through. And so you'll see this almost has kind of like a layered cut look to it, but it's not layered. It's just removing that bulk, removing that weight, but making it fun, playful, PC. And this is why this is such a great style to just kind of like tussle around, let it air dry, do its thing, because you really can't go wrong with it in a sense. Okay. And so now as we get to our sides, we're going to texturize this just a hair differently. We're going to go in with radial sections here. We're going to hold this up. Grab that piece at a 90 degrees from the head. And if you have smaller hands, you can always break this up if you need to. Make sure it's good to see. And I like to break it up for more control at that 90. Coming straight up. Same thing, take those texturizers coming in at an angle. Cut and drop. Okay. So now we'll go in with that top section. Going in at that 90. Texturizers at an angle. And cut. And so now if you want to keep more weight at the base, you can just move your texturizers down a little bit more. Or if you only want the ends to be like a little more shattered, more texturized, then the best thing, just kind of keep moving those shears down. That's the fun part about this cut. It's going to be versatile for every client. It's going to be what works for you as well. And so the possibilities of what you can do with this are absolutely endless, which is one thing that I love about it.
Awesome. And why does that 90-degree angle give more volume?
So it's actually, we're elevating up. And so when we elevate this hair up, when it falls back into its natural fall, those shorter pieces that are coming down on the bottom are going to start pushing up, creating more lift for you. 90 degrees. And now there is less hair on the side, so you won't have to texturize as much as like what we do into the back. And a lot of times on the sides, like I usually just do like one good angled chop just to debulk it just a little bit. All right. And then I'm going to pull that front piece up at our 90. I face her this way just so you all can see different angles. Okay. Texturize, cut, and let it fall. And so also this kind of hides a little bit of those lines that we get sometimes with those texturizers. And so by actually going in at the angle, you're disguising a lot of them, because I know sometimes when we go in hardcore horizontally, you start seeing those little flip ups kind of happening. And I know that's one big thing I like to try to stay away from the most I can. Coming into our other side here, we're going to go in, pull this up at our 90. Cut that in half just for a little bit more control here. And brush that out. So what do you guys think about this texturizing technique? Fun, exciting, ready to
Everybody
try it on
is
your
loving this technique.
Yay! So I say
Really
this is
awesome.
so fun to me. And clients love it too, because they definitely see a difference when we're doing something different, especially if they've been with us for a matter of time. I think those are the ones that notice more than we do sometimes. All right.
Totally.
So
And I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. You are good.
Okay. Amy's asking, what if you want less volume?
If you want less volume, then I'll actually show you right here on this piece. So we're going to pull that at a 90 there. I will actually let a little bit of that hair fall out. And when I go in with my angle, I'm going to come closer in towards the ends. So that way, we're just kind of taking that texture right at the bottom instead of coming more up here to where those little hairs are going to push up to add that volume. So yeah, just move down a little bit more down to your ends. Like I said, this is a great technique to even use on your layered clients if you're wanting to blend those layers in a little bit more, but you don't want to do too much. And honestly, even throughout this entire haircut, you could go in and just do just your tips to get just a nice, airy, playful kind of finish to it. And that's the fun part with like cutting. I feel like it's very versatile to each person. And so why not do something a little bit different with it? And so this mannequin actually has two different colors of hair. I've colored one side to be able to show you like with the lighter color and then the darker as well, that this technique, it looks the same no matter what. I know sometimes on our blonde clients, we run into where you see every line that's cut. And so with something like this, I really wanted to make sure that all of you saw that your finished look would look the same, no matter the color of the hair. And that's where a lot of that softness comes in. Okay, so now we went in, we have texturized her, and I like to call this the filter texturing, just because think about it that way. When I cut, I don't know if any of you do it, but I make little weird noises sometimes. And so when I'm going in through this technique, I'm always just filter, 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 because it is kind of like filtering it versus texturizing it. And it's another way to call your cut a little bit something different than just, oh, that's a textured bob. This is a filtered bob. Cool. All right, so as you can see, just all this movement it's created. It's very airy, fun, which is one thing that I absolutely love the most with this as well. So what do you guys think? Do you love this? You're gonna try it? And if any of you guys do try this, please tag me. I would love to see your recreations of this. Or if you ever have any questions or concerns, always feel free to message me. I reply back as soon as I possibly can. Or even if you just had any aha moments, I love to hear those as well.
Amazing. Thanks, Zach. And for everybody watching this, if you missed the beginning or anything, or if you want to go back and rewatch it, this is going to be on BTC's Facebook. You can go back and rewatch it as many times as you want. It's also on our YouTube channel, so rewatch it there if you want. And Zach's Instagram handle is there in the bottom left, Hair by Zach. So feel free to DM him if you didn't get your question answered. And yeah, like he said, keep us posted if you try this technique. We'd love to see it.
Yes, most definitely. Well, thank you guys so much for joining today.
Thanks, Zach. Have a good one. Bye.
You too.